Okay. All right. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Wendy. How are you?
I'm really good.
Oh,
I'm really
good.
good. You were just telling me actually about swimming. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. So, so Wendy has been an avid year-long swimmer, like swimming in all the seasons for many years. And I've always really admired that and wish that I could be so brave. Swimming in the summer is easy, right? But when it gets to be super cold and gets chilly, then that's another thing. Anyway, so I took it upon myself this summer just to start regularly swimming. I'm really fortunate that I live near a body of water that I can do that. And I was just talking to Wendy about how now it's getting cold, 60, below 60. And the water is cold. And I love swimming. I love swimming in it. And it's interesting how my take about cold water has shifted, because before, when I thought I had to jump into cold water, I get all tense and and get in and like start swimming furiously. And I realized that if I just kind of ground and center myself and just kind of get in and feel it, like really feel it without resistance, I can feel the cold in a different way. And it's not sort of that anxiety, like hyperventilating kind of feeling at all. It's actually quite invigorating and soothing. And then once I swim for a little bit, I don't even notice it. So we'll see what happens. I have aspirations to be like Wendy, to be swimming in December and January. But we'll see. For now, it's great and I love it. And I'm so grateful for your inspiration.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah,
Didn't mean it to be be about me, but I do love it. It's very invigorating.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really invigorating. And I love what a lesson it has been for me. They always have there's this metaphor of just diving in, right? Just diving in or whatever. And for whatever you're doing, a goal you want to achieve, something that you really desire, but you're afraid to do. And I did it. I just dove in, but I actually didn't just dive in. I was really present to the process of going in. And at first I had to make myself feel it. Like this is going to suck because it's freaking cold. But just being in the moment, we talk a lot about being in present time. I realized how much of that really that has to do with my anticipation of how I think it's going to feel. And when you just are present with it, it's a really different experience. So there you go.
There you go. Okay, that might be the encapsulation of the whole thing. Like when they say, when you're starting to write a novel, if it's best if the first sentence is representative of the whole book.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now we'll really start. So Susan, where are you? What's your life like? What are you up to?
So I am right now, my practice, in which I work with people to master their emotions and energy and to help extend their perception, if you will, um, is going pretty good. I've got a number of clients that have been with me for a number of years and new clients who've come to me out of the tumultuousness, the uncertainty of this time that we're in, and also who are feeling all the feels of everything and everyone that's going on. And you and I come from similar backgrounds of, let's just say, hyper awareness and hypersensitivity.
Mhm.
And in normal times, that can be intense to really feel other people's emotions, other people's energy, the technology energy that's all around us.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's just amped up even more. And, it's exacerbated by some of the, I'll just say, divisiveness and even some of the bullying and negativity that's going on online, which is a shame because that's, our main mode of communication these days with a lot of folks. So,
Mhm.
so that's what I've been doing.
Mhm.
I've also been tending to my own health, not a COVID related health issue, but something else that came up at the end of, it's actually been a year now.
Yeah.
And you know about this, you've been a great support to me in this. So about a year ago, a mass formed in my neck and neck throat area, which is a little bit disconcerting for a variety of reasons. And I won't go into great detail, but long story short, after visiting numerous doctors, traditional medicine couldn't tell me what it was and didn't know how to help me. I did get it biopsied. It's not cancerous, but no one could tell me why it was there, what it was, or what I should do about it.
Mhm.
And so I knew that was my sign from the universe that I need to lean in on my own skills, lean in on my own skills in healing, lean into my spiritual practice, lean into my friends and colleagues that really understand the world of energy and how that can impact your physical health and well-being. And so that's what I did. And what I understood or what I realized is that I thought I knew a lot about energy before this happened. Whoa, I got some big lessons, some great epiphanies. And the upshot of it is a new level of mastery with how to own and hone and direct energy. So the outcome is now, a year later, it's pretty much gone, which sounds crazy, but it is. And just to be clear, this is not any message anti-traditional medicine,
Right.
anti-vaccine, it's not any of that. It's
Right.
literally my experience. And also knowing that when we tend to our energy, when we tend to our emotions, it can impact our physical health. And that if you are being treated by a traditional doctor for anything, I don't care what it is, tending to your energy can support your healing. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but it can support it in ways that you can't even imagine. So
Mhm.
that's my big lesson for the year, taking a lot of the emotional, sort of more etheric stuff that I work with people and really getting into solid physical. There's a mass in your neck. What are you going to do about it? So
Yes.
yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciate all your care and guidance in that. And I think having people that you can trust that really,
Yeah.
really are responsible with their energy, have a ton of integrity, is key. Because that forced me to be even more in integrity.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But
It's been amazing to watch you just on like bloom in a whole new way.
Mhm.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to call it my little friend. I'm super grateful for it now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
Yeah. So these are really, I appreciate you're painting this picture, you're painting that picture. What's your everyday life like?
Yeah. Well, what this little journey over the last year brought me to was a new level of living in approaching everything from sort of a spiritual perspective, not sort of, from a spiritual perspective,
Mhm.
living what I talk about in an even deeper way. And it's not like I'm forcing myself or like, oh, I've got to do, my mantras in the morning, or this is the exercises I have to do. It just sort of shifted into something that's become a little bit just more by default. Um, and kind of seeing the world with even greater extended perception. I've taught classes in psychical development, extended perception, honing your awareness, honing all of your sensitivities to be used in more practical ways.
Mhm.
And out of this, like, I even took myself to a new level. And that wasn't my intention at all. I was focused on getting rid of this thing. But that's what happened. And even with everything going on in the world, even with this going on, I just settled into this space of certainty that whatever happens, I'm going to be okay.
Mm.
And I know some people looking at this might be like, well, that's a very privileged way to think, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe. It's taken me a long time to get here, that's for sure. Really, I think it's something that we all innately can reach and have. And it's not that I think I'm so far advanced. I'm not at all. This is something a lot of people have naturally. I just didn't.
Mhm.
And it's something that I help my clients with, and I am now able, I guess let's just say I'm walking my talk a little bit better now than I was.
Yeah, isn't that the way?
Right. Yeah.
It's awesome. I always joke that I teach what I need to learn.
Yeah. It happens that way sometimes. And I think
Mhm.
that's the beauty of it. I had a great mentor, maybe I've shared this with you before, who told me, I mean, she literally told me that the way learning happens, the idea is that the teacher, right, teaches the student, and the student then goes on to be as exceptional or even have greater skill and knowledge than the teacher, and then they pass that on. And so rather than a cascading trickle down, it actually is, a
Mm.
winding up, a climbing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to think of that.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
it. That's a wonderful theme for what our focus is today, which is soul leadership.
Yeah.
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 So, from that perspective, from soul leadership, do you want to tell like kind of a little bit of some story of your life or what your perspectives are around soul leadership? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came into this work via another physical malady that I had many years ago. I had a seizure disorder that traditional doctors couldn't explain. And so I went to an energy healer. And instead of just going to the energy healer and having them heal me, I dove into it and I
Mm.
studied it intensively for about 9 years with this person. And um, when I think of soul leadership, um, at the time, I didn't think that that was a leadership move. But when I work with other people and I see them doing similar things, it's absolutely a leadership move. When you take the old phrase, take the bull by the horns, and I'm laughing about that because both you and I are Tauruses, but whatever, like
Yes.
I had to take my own self by the horns and literally lead myself, right? Stop relying Stop relying on other people to do stuff for me, to take care of shit, and get in there and do it myself.
Yes.
Now, obviously, having the support of a mentor and other people around you
Yeah.
is needed and necessary. But ultimately, I had to, I had to take responsibility. Only I could go deep in and really see what was going on. And when you have a good guide, a good teacher, a great healer, they know how to guide you into those spaces and places where you can find the places that need tending to and find the beautiful gold nuggets that have been buried deep in yuck for a long time.
Mhm.
So long story short, my seizure disorder really was the aftermath of years and years of anxiety that I had not properly tended to. Even though I'd been to all this therapy, all this other stuff, I had not tended to the layers upon layers upon layers of anxiety that I had had over the many years. And it just got built up and my body just short circuited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So my aim now is to help people before they get to a position like that with their own stress, but it's
Mhm.
also to sort of come to a place where they know themselves so well, they can feel that certainty in themselves that they can do whatever they want. I know I was going to make some profound statement, but it's really do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And I know we'll talk more about that, but I had to really start asking myself, who do I have to become in order to have the life that I want?
Mhm.
Who do I have to become? And for a lot of people, that sounds like, well, you don't want to do that. You want to become more yourself. Yes, and how I was living as myself was not serving me well. And at that time, I had no idea that I had the capacity that I do now. Like I had no clue back then that I
Mhm.
could be
Mhm.
doing and the things that I do now. I didn't know what I didn't know. And when I sort of got on the path more, it became very clear, oh, if I have a vision for something and I work towards that, then I can become that. And I
Yeah.
think that is a powerful thing that a lot of people, well, we just don't get that message. A lot of people don't.
Mhm.
I'll just say that. In
Mhm.
fact, I think a lot of us have to spend a good amount of time unwinding, deprogramming, healing from events and experiences in our past, maybe in our childhood, that
Mm.
really kind of buried us.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love that way of looking at it. Like, yes, becoming who we are, but like, who are we identifying as?
Yes,
Are we identifying as our
exactly.
trauma? Are we identifying with what, our masks? Are we identifying with like what our parents told us we had to grow up to be? Like, what are we identifying with?
Exactly. What are we identifying with? And for a long time, I identified with my trauma.
Yeah.
Um, and for a long time, I identified with the mask.
Mhm.
Yep. For a long time, I had different identities for different things, right?
I know.
I'd show up in my corporate job and I'd have a facade. I'd show up in the art music world that I like to play in, and there would be another aspect of me, right? Healing world, another aspect of me, which were all authentic and true.
Mhm.
But I felt like I felt like I had to just hold that particular one. Like I literally, it's not, it's not like a multiple personality disorder, but when they see those stories that you used to hear where they'd have names for all their people, right? I probably
Yes.
could have done that a little bit, but it was a conscious choice that I did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I talk about it as in like I'm speaking into the listening, but still it's like, aren't I just one person?
Yeah. You are one person. And I am and was too. And the different facades, the different fragments were based on fear that I wouldn't be accepted if people at my job found out that I was some weirdo artist, psychic healer person, fear, wanting to fit in more. I mean, it's basic stuff. Everybody can relate to it at some level. I mean, yeah, it's, but it creates that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That, a lot of people talk about, when you don't fully let all your parts integrate and come together. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So by the way, your computer went a little funny. So there's like a little edge. I think you might enjoy having it even. There we go.
Is it even? Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah. So this is, if you're willing to say, this is really, I think, useful. Like, what did it take to come to more congruence, and how is that going, and what's the fruit?
What did it take to come to more congruence? Well, I think for me personally, having an interest in sort of the esoteric and the unknown was key. I mean, I was the kid, my parents were highly academic and logical and practical. And, we went to church maybe on Christmas a couple of times, but I didn't have a huge outlet to explore anything of spirit or mystery. I became fascinated with, well, of course, fairy tales and ghosts and spirits. And I mean, I even got so into it that I like terrified myself and I couldn't sleep for a long time because it was like those things where you're just like, I got to keep reading about this. I'm like hooked on it. But then like I would terrify myself. Right. Anyway, long story short, that is the thread that brought me to this integration, because the kind of mind, body, spirit integration that people talk about that I'm experiencing now in ways that I haven't before was really, really came out of that. It's that invisible part, that etheric part that is a part of all of us, that I wanted to know more about. And I remember the moment where I had been doing so much sort of traditional therapy. And at a certain point, it dawned on me, none of these people are spiritual.
Mhm.
None of these people have sort of even a hint of a mystical slant. And that's great. I know they can help a ton of people, but that wasn't what I needed. I needed someone where I could talk easily about things that I sense or see, or, exploring beliefs in a place where I wouldn't feel judged, and a place where the sensitivities that I was having weren't put into some, I don't know, diagnosis of something. I'll just say that. Right?
Right.
So, yeah. So when we get into the idea of soul leadership, I think it puts that part more at the forefront. I think for a long time I was operating as, I'm a person and I do this stuff in the world. And by the way, I have, I'm spirit and I believe in soul stuff right? And it's flipped now. It's flipped now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And it took time and it took intention.
It took time and it took intention, and it took not taking everything at face value, like just because a teacher told me something or I learned something, like then I took it and I went deeper in myself, but also deeper in research, deeper in conversations, right? And you and I talk a lot about different pictures and approaches people have to things, right? And there is no right way. There's no one way to do a thing by any stretch.
Yeah.
But if you have a good teacher and guide, they can show you a way, and they can guide you to discover your own way, your own ways of of doing things.
And how's that been, that process of helping others coming to the place? Yes, you can help others, but helping them discover their own ways. What's that been like?
It's mind-blowing. It's freaking mind-blowing. And I think, as you alluded to earlier, there's every person that I work with, I learn so much from. And it's amazing to see, to witness people who are brave, who are brave. I mean, it takes some courage to do this, to go in, uncover something, and then come out with their own gems, their own nuggets of gold. And that then they're able to take that from their unique experience and perspective and start sharing that with others. A lot of the people that I work with, I know like you too, go on, have become healers or have worked with me and then like blown out their own practices in ways, or they've taken the material into really different places, like back into the corporate world or other places. And it's helped them blossom into their purpose more. Yeah. And a lot of people talk about purpose, like if you're a soul leader, you have to have a purpose. And I think purpose is an interesting thing. A lot of people, want to put a very specific label on it, like my purpose is to be a lawyer, my purpose is to be a singer, whatever it is. I think what I found and the people that I've worked with have found is that their purpose is to help other people become more fully actualized, to create spaces where people can explore hard stuff safely, where they can have conversations with people that they might not be able to have with other people because of, a lot of divisiveness around things, or they might be thought of as too weird to even consider that. And in that exploration, they come to discern what is truly true for them. And then that starts building that certainty that I was talking about earlier. So that that idea then of who do I need to become to achieve what I want starts becoming more real. And I guess I'll repeat, when you are allowed space to safely explore all the options, all the ideas, that answer comes much more quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the little orphans get paid attention to.
Yeah. The little orphans gets paid attention to. The parts that you hide because the world outside or online is judging people, judging stuff, and throwing negative energy about this, that, or the other. Gosh, it doesn't matter what you believe now. You're going to get some hate from people.
Might as well fly your freak flag because
exactly, right? Like, and that was part of it, with all the parts of me that felt fragmented. I mean, let's be honest, I was being judged anyway. People who are judging, who are judgers, judge. Being judged anyway. So I'm being judged about all the stuff that I'm trying to do to keep, myself from being judged. And I wasn't being fully, authentically myself. And so whatever, judge away. I'd rather have people judge me for who I actually am than for some mask that I'm wearing, right? Or for some whatever one part of me rather than the full picture. So, and I think when we're talking again about leaders of anything, that's really key to get over that. You
Yes.
know, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've worked in the corporate world. And there are always opportunities to take to stand up and be a leader, but certainly when you're an entrepreneur, you have to.
Have to.
And you have to, someone said this to me the other day, and I think it's so true. You have to decide if your fear is more important than the transformation that you can help other people come to. Is your fear more important than the opportunity you can give other people? Is your fear more important than the service you can provide to other people? And it may feel huge, your fear. I completely get it. But when you start looking at it that way, it starts taking the emphasis off of you and of the impact you can bring to the world.
Damn, that's a quotable quote, by the way. Along with, I love this other one too. I'd rather other people judge me for who I am, not the masks of me. Something like that. Isn't that awesome? These are quotable quotes.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah.
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 It's so easy though. It's so easy to just go along to get along. It's so easy to just cut a few corners to fit in better or think it's going to pay off in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to avoid conflict. I mean, I wholeheartedly support people that want to leave relationships or situations that are uncomfortable or feel toxic. Absolutely. However, there are some situations that are actually opportunities that are actually inviting you to step up into your soul leadership. And, we think about leadership as leading other people, but really, like, it's literally taking the bull by the horns and leading yourself from the
Yes.
soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so sometimes these things are opportunities for you to step up and into that. And can you hold, right, that certainty about yourself in the face of backlash or of judgment? And beyond that, can you hold it without reacting and sort of feeding the angst, feeding the fire?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's two different things, two very important things. Can I hold myself and can I not feed the fire?
Yeah. It's two very different things. And I feel like those people who have greater mastery over their energy and who have a mastery in tending to their emotions will find that they can do that better. And they can stay in a place a little bit more of objective observer, which doesn't mean they aren't present to what's going on, but the energy or the crazy, whatever it is. And you know what? I shouldn't even say crazy. That's a derogatory word. People get to have their feelings. People get to have their opinions. It's not crazy.
Right. Intense.
It's intense. It can be intense.
Yeah.
But you don't have to match the intensity.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to match the intensity to make your point.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things you were talking about on this page as I take notes
Please.
of these great things that you're saying. I like one of the things I think is so important about soul leadership is who we're being, what we're doing, us. And that's you're saying you take the bull by the horns. And would you like to talk any more about that, of how to do that, what it looks like, why or how it affects other people? Anything you want to say about that would be great.
Sure. I think taking, when I use that phrase, it really points to taking responsibility for what's going on inside of you. And I don't mean that as any form of spiritual bypassing or bypassing whatever that people often call out. When I work with people, especially, I'm super present to what's going on with them, and we deal with the hard stuff. We go in and we look at it,
right,
and we tend to it,
mm-hmm.
and we tend to it, and we take action around it, rather than that letting continue to be the driver.
Right.
And having someone go in with you can be super helpful, but anyone can start to look at it within themselves and really take ownership of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that's going on into you, people talk about the shadow and the idea of shadow alchemy, is yours, even if it's there because of someone else, even if it's there because of someone else. And even though I knew that intellectually for a long time, it took me a long time then to really understand it deep in my cells, deep in my bones.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that radical responsibility for that is super important.
Yeah.
Now, I've been kind of referring a lot to people who had trauma in their life and are thus kind of working through it. But even if you didn't, right? You can take responsibility for how that is affecting you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the angst that we're seeing sort of thrown around is people not fully understanding that they have actually the power to do that. Because we aren't taught about anything like that when we're in school. We aren't shown that in the places that we work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even in churches or religious groups, they don't dive into this stuff often in the ways that we all can innately do. We all can do if we are aware of it, right? Again, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if I were empowered to do it, or if I was responsible for my experience, what would change? What would I see? What could I do about it? How could I see it differently? Like, all these things are not the most obvious thing all the time. But they can become pretty obvious.
They can become pretty obvious the more you look at it, and I don't want this to sound like, this isn't some sort of selfish introspection or narcissism. Right. I want to make that clear. This is actually the opposite. It is understanding that how you tend to yourself impacts the world at large.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What you're saying reminds me, I don't have it exactly, but there's a Jung quote that says, if we don't own our shadow, it occurs as fate. And like, that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, and what I notice is that, like, it just keeps happening. I'm the victim of it. It's just happening to me. And it seems to have nothing to do with me. But what if it does?
What if it does?
Mm-hmm.
Or what if even a tiny bit of it does?
Yeah.
I mean, if you knew that even a tiny bit of it might have to do with you, I mean, wouldn't you try and take care of that so that maybe it could be less painful, or maybe you could experience something different? And one of the things that comes up, I'm sure with people who worked with me in the past, and also when I work with people now, is because they don't know what's next, they're too afraid to stepping into the unknown, right?
Yes.
What could it be? Right? I've lived my whole life this way. I can't imagine what it would be like. And there's all this stuff out in the world. Well, just envision what you want and be in the vibration of what you want, and then it will magically manifest. And maybe.
Maybe. Maybe, although there are 10,000 things in front of me, like saying, no, 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 but pay no attention to
Totally,
that.
totally. It requires a little bit more effort and action than that. And what that vision of what you want can serve as is, okay, that going back to the question, who do I have to become to have that? It's not about me sitting here like saying my mantras and writing 1,000 times over and over, trying to manifest the thing they want, or having a gazillion vision boards and trying to match the vibration of what it would be like. I've tried that, by the way.
Yeah.
It's an interesting exercise and it can help lift you out of things. However,
Yeah.
it only goes so far.
Yeah. 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 So resonating with it, being focused on it is one part, but there's also like getting myself out of the way.
Yeah. And I think being focused on it, it's not necessarily even focused on the thing. Like I want, whatever, XYZ's dollars. I want a new car. It's who do I have to become to have that?
Yeah. I really love that question.
Yeah.
It's an awesome
Because
question.
if the person that I have to become can have that, then they can have a whole bunch of other stuff. Right. And by having, I don't mean necessarily material things all the time, but that's a part of it. And there's nothing wrong with it. But it also transcends into having the kind of relationships that you want with people, having the kind of job you want with people, or having the kind of job you want, being the kind of parent you want to be, being the kind of partner that you want to be, all of these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things was the bull by the horns, and under it is like, I guess we already got to it, is like, who are we being? And we've kind of said that. Is there anything else you want to say about that? Just who are we being? I think we kind of covered it, but if you have anything
We kind of covered it, but I mean, to just get in a little deeper, it really, there's so much that obviously we get programmed with, who we should be, what we should be doing, and beliefs around what we can be. And even after doing some work around this, some of those other factors can still come into play, and that's okay. It's okay. But as you do more of it, you become a little bit more discerning. You start to see even the little threads. You start to see, oh, that thing, that's actually has nothing to do with where I want to go right now.
Right. Right.
Or you can even see influences of specific people, right? And it's not, their influence isn't necessarily toxic. It's not a thing you have to avoid. If you tend to it into yourself, you can be strong in whatever it is that you're doing and let them do their thing.
There's a concept.
Right? Like, let them do their thing.
As I do my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Great. So that kind of goes to what I see as a precursor of soul leadership. And I'd love to hear what you think. So I see a precursor of soul leadership as what you talked about before, of do whatever I want, and this together with this, let them do whatever they want, as being captain of our ship.
Yeah, I love that analogy that you have. Yeah, absolutely.
And from there, I believe naturally comes like falling off a log, soul leadership. So what do you think about that? And what do you think about, what are your perspectives about captain of ship, or whatever you want to call it?
No, I absolutely think that's a great analogy because, the captain, is the captain through calm and through stormy waters, and they maintain their certainty, they maintain their direction, they maintain their focus, even when they aren't sure right? And I think that's really important. And believe me, I mean, I'm sure many captains have gone in and had a huge breakdown in their cabin at times or whatever, or discussed, holy shit, what the heck are we going to do here?
Yes.
It's obviously you get to have your feelings, and I want to make sure I am not saying that. I am all about feelings. Feelings are important. You have to tend to them though.
Yeah.
If you want to be the kind of person that has what you want to have, they need to be tended to. And
Mhm.
you cannot make decisions out of high emotion. Well, I mean, you can, obviously.
You can get the results too.
But often the decision is out of a reaction. It's not from a space of extended perception or awareness. And we can get
Mhm.
into that a little bit. The captain always has to have a modicum of that, let's just say. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of paying attention going on.
there's a lot of paying attention. And, you know, in saying that, it sounds like, that sounds hard, right? Like, oh God, I got to pay attention. I've got to pay attention to all that. I've also got to pay the bills, feed the kids, take the dog for a walk, deal with my boss. Like it's not a separate thing.
Nope.
It's a
No.
lens that you decide to put on. It's a lens that kind of, again, becomes a default where all of your faculties of perception are kind of on and honed, and not in a way that's overwhelming.
Right. Right. I think a lot of parents can relate to this because, like, I'm not a parent, but I was a camp counselor for 6 years at Girl Scout camp, resident camp.
Aww.
And I've been known, I sleep like a log. I sleep like a log. But that was my job when those 6 weeks or whatever it was. I remember like this is just an example. One night in the middle of the night, there was a voice and I was awake and I'm like out of the tent. And it was like an adult who didn't belong there. It just woke me up like that. That's what it is. It's just, we have an attention that that is bigger, that and parents do that all like just naturally, and that's
Right.
the kind of tension I'm talking about. It's just natural. Like, I own this house. I hear if the door opens.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, I think parents are so attuned to that thing with their kids that sometimes, um, I mean, that's just a job that takes so much of that
Yeah.
sometimes they can forget about themselves
Yes.
or feel like they don't have enough energy for themselves. So,
Yes.
yeah, I know that you work with people on that. I do too.
Yeah.
I think it's it's coming to an understanding, like a greater awareness of the full capacity of what we as spirit and what our physical bodies can do and what we're capable of.
Yes.
I
Without
mean,
effort.
without effort,
Yes.
because we became aware of that ability, because we tended to, in easy ways, to these things, right? And by easy, I don't mean it's necessarily always easy, but it doesn't have to take a huge amount of effort many times, right?
Yeah. Right. No effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you and I have both talked and taught a lot about the idea of effort energy or problem energy, and how that is like a whole separate entity, if you will, than the actual challenge that's happening.
Yes.
Right? So there's the thing that's happening, and then there's like all the problems that we're spinning out that could potentially happen or that we're imagining are happening. I'm imagining you're thinking of me, and vice versa. And like down the road, all the problems this could cause. And it creates a whole cloud of just crap that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. And it's
But
tiring.
it's tiring, and it feels very, very real because
Mhm.
we've made it real. And
Right.
then it makes the idea of taking action or doing anything feel really exhausting and hard.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Awesome. So anything else about captain of ship or how that might relate to soul leadership?
Well, I think it's scary to become a captain. And captain of your own ship means you can't blame anybody else for where you are. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. And they want to continue. And believe me, I understand, because my identity was very much based on my trauma for a very long time, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why this hasn't happened yet. There's a reason why I feel this way. And it's outside of me, right? But ultimately, it's inside of me.
Yes.
Because those people in those circumstances, they aren't necessarily doing the thing anymore.
Yeah.
I may not even know any of them. They've gone on and done other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't even thinking of me.
They're messing with other people now.
Maybe they are. Hopefully
Maybe.
not.
Hopefully
Hopefully
not.
they've right. Well, and this is another point here. So it is my responsibility. I also have to take responsibility for how my lack of awareness, my ignorance, my identifying with trauma has adversely impacted other people.
Yeah.
Because it's highly likely, pretty darn likely, that at some point in my life, I was the person, right, that was doing something that hurt someone else or made it difficult for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't tending to my own bullshit.
Yeah.
And I don't mean bullshit like it doesn't exist, it's not real. I don't mean that at all.
No.
It's very real. But at a certain point, it becomes just crap you don't want to live with anymore.
Yeah.
And I guess I had to say bullshit again since I'm using the bull by the horns analogy. Like, okay.
Let's just tie that together along with the shadow, right?
Right.
It's shadow stuff. Like I can't see it. It seems like it's all happening to me, but somehow I'm happening to it in ways that are I don't want to own because it's not pretty.
It's not pretty. And, you have a right to be scared, sad, angry at what happened to you. So, right, absolutely. But that's where the tending comes to.
Yeah.
You have to tend to it. You can't overlook it. I mean, obviously you don't have to do anything, but let's just say
Right.
if you want to tend to it, you can see shifts. You can start to become that which you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've both been in this process, and there's some really great fruit, and you've talked about some of it, but from this perspective, would you like to talk about like what's the fruit of tending to that? What's the fruit of stopping living in the trauma from the past?
When you stop living in the trauma from the past, you gain a whole lot of clarity, meaning your mind is just clearer, less fog, less uncertainty about choices that you want to make in your life. You start to listen to your heart's desire more than all the other voices, whatever, the messages that you tell yourself, right? Or that have been told to you. When you tend to that, you open up doors that you might not have opened before. And you can start taking, in doing that little by little, you know, start taking what in the past might have been a big risk and super scary, opening you up to possibilities and things that you know, you can't even imagine. I mean, my mind, and it can be mind blowing, both in like a physical material way about things that happen in your life, but also mind blowing in what you can experience in your own consciousness, in your own heart and soul. A deepening into relationships that seemed like would never be possible for you.
Yeah.
I'll just say for me, whatever, but
Yeah. Yeah. And boundaries. I just happen to notice boundaries too, like the opposite of like, that's enough of that.
yeah, absolutely. Boundaries about what works for you and what doesn't, right? And I like to talk about it that way because I do think, in our current climate, anything that kind of rubs someone the wrong way becomes toxic.
Mm.
And banish the toxic people. Absolutely. Do it.
Yeah. Who's left?
Right? Like everybody brings a level of toxic. Every person in the planet has brought something that has been perceived as toxic by someone else or judged to be toxic. Absolutely take care of yourself. Do what you need to do. And, you know, then I just view it that way. You know, this is what works for me. That doesn't work for me. That's it.
Yeah.
Because if I get caught up into some story about how toxic and terrible they are and start judging them, like so much of my mind power and energy goes toward that.
Yeah. It's just drama.
It's just drama. It could be used for something else. I could actually be doing something, you know, for someone nice, for someone I love. I could be taking care of myself. I could be working on my business. I mean, and I'm making it sound easy, but when you have been entrained in negative thinking, and I definitely had that, it can be hard to break the cycle. But that's like your emotions, another thing that needs tending to. It's like, oh, there I go again. There I go again. How is that helping anything? And that's like, what? How is this helping? Is this helping me? Might make me feel righteous and judgy and like, oh, I know better. It's a bunch of crap. They're so evil. Whatever. No, it's a waste of my time. So
yes,
hone it back.
Yes. It's so good to hear, Susan, because it's so common these days. So it's nice to hear like there's another way.
There is another way. And I think anyone who aspires to lead from their soul, lead from their spirit, be a soul leader, you know, they get that. I mean, when you really stop and think, like, I was in a webinar the other day and someone was talking about relationships and she said a couple of words and then someone made about a relationship and someone made a lewd joke in the comments for whatever reason. And the presenter said, why would you waste conscious energy on that? Like to the whole group, like, why would you do that? And went on.
Like they were trying to pull her cord and it didn't work.
Something, or like, why would you even bother going there? I mean, that's, you know, right? Like, and, you know, whatever, that's how she wanted to run her group. And, but it's just, to me, it was just a remembering of like how much time we waste spinning into drama, spinning into stories about other people. How much time, you know, because I was hurt a gazillion years ago because by a thing, and then someone shows up and they trigger that now they're the demon, and just spinning the trauma even more rather than saying no more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So I do have other questions.
Please.
But I want to say, like, from what you were thinking before we met, or anything that's come up now, is there anything else you want to say specifically about soul leadership, or what it's like, or how it's helpful, how it's done?
Well, soul leadership, I think, is a phrase that a lot of people look at and think, yeah, I want to be a leader. I want to lead the souls. Like, I'm going to lead from my soul, but I'm going to lead people. And that's amazing and great. And we need more soul leaders. But the first leadership has to come from leading your own soul. Or let's say letting your own soul lead. Right? And figuring out that what that is for yourself. Because until you do it for yourself, you can't fully be in that soul leadership role for other people. That's like anything, right?
Right.
And then this gets back to walking your talk better.
Right.
Walking your talk even more, and being in integrity. I mean, that's another question that I try and ask myself on a regular basis. Is this in integrity? And I always had a rule: I'm never going to share anything or teach anything unless I have done it myself, unless I have some awareness of doing it myself, right? You can't teach someone to ground their energy if you haven't done it yourself. I mean, basic. You can talk about concepts, but until you do it yourself, it's just something that you can't fully explain or share with people. So yeah, but it's something we all can do. And there are a lot of great teachers out there. There are a lot of great people in leadership that are already doing it. And I feel like this is one of the things that could really all help us all and help kind of make things a little bit more smooth out in the world. Because when I think of soul leadership, I think of it as, the deep down truth of the heart and soul that everyone really wants, which is harmony with others, a clear path, a clear picture, and knowing that they have the ability. And when that energy drives, it's a completely different experience than, let's assess what's going on out in the world and let's make a strategy around that. That's helpful. I'm not going to say that isn't helpful, but it's a completely different experience, and it paves the way for opportunities that you could never imagine.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. That you can't strategize for. And I know this because I've done strategy for businesses. And it can be helpful. I'm not saying that. However, this in the mix and this sort of holding that strategy. Whew.
Yes. Yeah. That's a nice combination.
Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hooray, hooray.
Yeah. I love talking about this stuff with you. It's so much fun. And I think it's so needed. I mean, having little if everybody could have conversations kind of like this or around this with what's going on, or just free and open, just sharing ideas. Sharing ideas. I think you spoke to that a couple of weeks ago about how you like to play with ideas. Play with possibilities, play with ideas is such a freeing exercise. and such a gift that we can give each other. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for
Thank you.
providing the container for that.
You're welcome. Are you willing to keep going? Because I have other things.
Sure, I can go for a little bit.
Okay. So specifically mystics, your mystic, is that a word you relate to?
Oh
or
yeah,
the words
absolutely.
like that? What
Mhm.
has your mystic journey been like? What's helped you along? What's been easy and hard and fun and not?
Yeah. So first of all, the word mystic, and I'm even going to throw in the word psychic, were words that I avoided like the plague for a long time because I didn't want to be seen as a weirdo. I wanted to be taken seriously. I wanted my sort of intellectual intelligence to take precedence. Um, and that worked for a while. But it was also a little bit a part of those facades that came through. I wasn't allowing all of that to come into play. So just to sort of explain it a little bit, I mean, I was born into the world pretty hypersensitive. And then I also had trauma in my life, which exacerbated that, right? And if you live in a traumatic situation, you become hyper aware to protect yourself. Now, I didn't fully understand that until much later,
Right.
but when I did get that, it made perfect sense. So great survival mechanism until you get to the place where you've got so much that you are aware of and trying to tend to, and like this, it just becomes overwhelming. It becomes overwhelming. And so in my case, that overwhelm and my desire to escape it took me down some paths that were highly self-destructive in terms of self-abuse, self-destructive behaviors, addiction, all sorts of things like that. And ultimately then, this accumulation of energy and anxiety that literally made my physical body implode. And that seizure disorder that I was having, that I was talking to you about. Now that happened actually after I got over my addiction stuff. It was evidence that I still had a lot more work to do. Just because the behavior stops doesn't mean you're done.
Yeah.
Does not mean you're done. And I didn't really fully realize that. And I had no idea, right? Because emotions are emotions and your body is your body. And those are separate things. I had this I was operating the world as if all these parts and pieces were separate. And I learned the hard way that that's not true at all. They're inextricably entwined. And so understanding your own energy system and the systems that you develop within yourself in relation to things you are doing and to the people you know, those are very real and they impact your nervous system. They impact everything you do. And so, now I not laugh. I mean, when you think about, oh, that person did a thing to me. Yes. And because we're built the way we are, there is a natural system that develops between you and an abuser or you and a traumatizer or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you have to address that. You have to become aware of it. You have to disrupt the cycle, disrupt the system, and then you have to shift the system. Preferably towards your own self-tending, self-care, and relationships that are support you, that are more balanced.
Boy, Susan, that could be a whole book right there. That encapsulates a lot of wisdom, what you just said. I just really want to validate that.
Well, thank you. I did teach a class for a while, energy system healing, that looked exactly at that, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, I'm overwhelmed, my partner this, or my work this, and my work that. okay, right? There's the stuff that's going on in you, and then there's the system that you've created, the behavior, whatever it is, with whatever it is that is bothering you, that has to be tended to.
Mm-hmm.
So that required looking at the invisible, if you will, right? And getting back to sort of the mystic question, you can't see energy. Well, a lot of people can, let's just say. I don't want to say, but some people can't, and we are not trained to see or sense energy. We are not trained to. You can train yourself. You can work with other people to learn how to see and sense energy. Absolutely. But you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know that part of it for a really long time. And when I was enlightened to it, I started seeing it everywhere. And I started realizing me standing there and expecting the other person to stop was ridiculous. I had to be the disruptor. I had to be the one to shift.
Yes.
Whether that means setting up a boundary, whether that means leaving, or whether it means literally changing how I act and behave. And not in a false way, in the person I want to become way. How would the person who interacts in a strong way with this challenge, how would they show up? What do I need to do to become that?
Mm-hmm.
And that can feel like a very lonely road. So teachers and helpers are great. But also, going back to the invisible, there are invisible or etheric, there's energy around us, above us, below us, that we can tune into and lean on for health and for help and support.
Beautiful.
God, the universe, all that is, life force energy, source energy, the divine, whatever you call it. That energy is there for you to lean into, not dictate to you, lean into. And a lot of people get, they don't want to use the word God because it brings this picture of all this other stuff. But when you think of divine energy, holy energy, sacredness, what do you think of? And this energy is everywhere. It's within us, it's around us, above, below, the beautiful earth below. It is everywhere, and we can lean into it. We can work with it because we are of it. Yeah. And, coming to the sense that I am actually one of God's creations. I am the universe. I am a creation of the universe, and allowing myself to be that was huge. But when that finally settled in, right, it was a real game changer, because there was a whole other thing that was holding me up that I could draw from.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you've been asking me a lot of questions. I mean, what do you think about that? You tell me your experience. I know you invited me, but whatever.
I agree with you. This whole part about our divine connection, and I love the way you languaged it so broadly. Support from heaven and earth and all around. Yeah, beautiful. I cannot say it any better than you did. It's a beautiful, beautiful journey.
Yeah, and it takes a leap of faith, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people feel like, oh, I need proof, and very logical, sort of analytical brain stuff, which is useful and needed and helpful. And we have a bunch of other faculties that we can use and draw on. We were made to have them.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a way to hold both, to be highly analytical, highly intellectual, highly logical, and also have profound spiritual beliefs and experiences and faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes. And I understand that that's that holding those two seems to me, I've heard you say it's kind of one of your specialties. You like to work with people about that.
Yeah, I do. I tend to get people that are real good analyzers, real brainiacs, really smart people. And they sense there's something they're missing, something else going on, but they don't know how to bridge to it. And I love working with anybody, but yeah, to see how one's expansion of, it's literally a consciousness expansion. I mean, what we're talking about here, your consciousness expands to a greater capacity of what it can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. So what's great is I get these people that are, very precise, very direct. And once they start getting it, then their ability to direct energy is insane.
Oh, right. Because they already have the focus.
They already have the focus, right?
Interesting.
And the way we talk about things can be both in the etherical and spiritual. It's also very practical, tactical, right?
Yeah.
And circling back to just directing my energy towards this mass that was in my neck, like it's you can go either way, but when you can sort of hone the both together, that's when you start to master energy and being able to direct it. And people think about magic. Well, what does a magician do? What does a sorcerer do? They're really good at directing energy.
Mm-hmm.
Really good at directing energy.
Mm-hmm.
And magic can happen. Miracles do happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They can happen all the time. They aren't like these once in a lifetime things. These things can start happening around you that are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't, because we all actually innately have this ability, I believe.
Yes. And it's that dance of the energy and physical or spiritual and body, or however you want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a dance. And bringing the body into it is key. I disconnected from my body so much because being in my body sucked.
Right?
Fucking sucked. It was painful, awkward, depressing. And so I detached from it. Through this process, even though my initial draw to it was the etheric, sort of being the, in what seems to not be the body, it actually brought me into my body even more.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Treat your body way differently. All of that, because your body is conscious. I believe your body is conscious. It's not just your consciousness. It isn't just your brain. Your mind and your consciousness is more than your brain.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great. And you've been living it?
I have been living it. I have been living it. You know, I pause for a second. You know, it's not a perfect thing, but I tell
Right.
you, my default is there. Whereas it used to be the opposite, right? I would have fleeting moments of this, and now it's flipped. And certainly I still have periods where I have, you know, breakdowns or whatever, because it's a normal, natural thing to do. And I think having breakdowns and crying is, or whatever it is that you do, it's a way to release energy. I've always thought that. I've never shamed anybody for crying, and people get shamed for crying or being angry. Really?
Yeah.
It's energy flowing through you. That's what it is. Through your physical body, and you have to deal with it, right? Or you don't, and then there can be consequences. But that's what we're talking about, realizing that you actually have some ability to shape how you show up, how you feel, and the world that you create around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
Susan. Okay,
Thank
so what else
you.
did you want to say anything else today? Is there anything, any final words? You had so many good ones.
I just encourage anybody that feels like they want help with any of this, or they, know that there's something more that they haven't tapped into. Just reach out to someone that you feel like you trust.
Mhm.
Inquire, find out more. Um, and there's always more to learn. You can just keep go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I know that sounds like, oh well, God, that's just it's hard. It's a lot hard. It's actually becomes the path that you live, and it's super exciting and fun and crazy cosmic, and also crazy amazing in the material world as well, like in the
Yeah.
physical body and the physical, how you experience this world. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'd say.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Thank you
Thank
so
you, thank
much.
you, thank you. So great fun. So
So
great
great
fun.
fun.